Hey everyone, I'm Stella, and I am so excited to share something really close to my heart today. Learning English has been one of the most rewarding journeys of my life, and I know it can feel a little bit daunting at times, right? Like, where do you even begin? Well, I've gathered my top 10 tips that genuinely helped me get more confident and fluent. These aren't just textbook ideas, these are things I actually did that made a huge difference. So grab a comfy seat, maybe a cup of tea, and let's dive into how you can make English learning an awesome part of your daily life. We're starting with a big one, something super impactful. All right, so my very first tip, and honestly, one of the most powerful things you can do, is to make English your daily buddy. What does that even mean? It means immersing yourself, surrounding yourself with English as much as humanly possible, even when you're not studying. Think about it. When you learn your first language, you're just constantly hearing it, right? It's everywhere. We want to try and replicate that as much as we can for English. So, how do you do this? It's easier than you think. One of my favorite ways was to simply change the language on my phone and computer to English. At first, it felt a little weird, a bit clunky, but trust me, you'll pick up so many common phrases and commands without even realizing it. You're interacting with it constantly. Beyond that, think about your entertainment. Do you love watching movies or TV shows? Start watching them in English. At the beginning, use English subtitles. Don't use subtitles in your native language, because your brain will just default to that. Force yourself to read the English. And then, as you get more comfortable, try watching without any subtitles. You'll be amazed at how much you start to pick up from context, intonation, and body language. And music. Who doesn't love music? Create a playlist of your favorite English songs. Look up the lyrics, sing along, try to understand the story the artist is telling. It's a fun, low-pressure way to absorb vocabulary and natural speech patterns. The more you hear English, the more familiar it becomes, and the more natural it feels to you. It's about making English a constant, comforting presence in your everyday life, not just something you sit down and study for an hour. It becomes part of your background, your environment, and eventually, part of you. Okay, so this next tip might sound a little bit silly, maybe even a little bit crazy, but trust me on this one. Talk to yourself in English. Yes, you heard me right. I'm not suggesting you have full-blown philosophical debates with yourself in the mirror. Unless you want to, then go for it. But seriously, this is about getting comfortable with the sound of your own voice speaking English, and it's a fantastic way to practice without any pressure or fear of making mistakes in front of others. Think about it. You're with yourself all the time, right? So why not turn those quiet moments into mini English practice sessions? When you're making breakfast, narrate what you're doing. I am cracking the eggs. Now I'm toasting the bread. When you're walking your dog, describe what you see. Look at that cute squirrel. Or, the trees are so green today. Even when you're just tidying up your room, you can be thinking aloud, I need to put these books away. Where did I leave my keys? This isn't about perfect grammar or complex sentences. It's about building that muscle memory in your mouth and brain. It helps you connect thoughts directly to English words without having to translate them in your head first. The more you verbalize your thoughts, even to an audience of one, you, the more natural and automatic it becomes. You're training your brain to switch gears and operate in English. Another great way to do this is to simply describe your surroundings. Look around the room you're in right now. Can you name everything you see in English? Can you describe its color, its texture, its purpose? That's a wooden table. It's brown and smooth. This is a lamp. It provides light. Don't be afraid to experiment with new words. If you don't know a word, make a mental note, look it up later, and then try to use it in your next self-talk session. It's a completely judgment-free zone, which makes it an incredibly powerful tool for building confidence and fluency. Okay, so for tip number 3, we're going to talk about something really visual and super effective. Picture your words. This might sound simple, but it's a game changer for moving beyond direct translation in your head. When you're learning new English vocabulary, instead of associating the English word with its equivalent in your native language, try to connect it directly with an actual image, a feeling, or even a sound. Think about it this way. When you were a small child learning your first language, you didn't have another language to translate from, right? You saw a dog, and you learned the word dog because you associated the sound directly with that furry, four-legged creature. We want to try and replicate that pure, direct connection for English. So, how do you do this? My favorite way is through visual flashcards. Instead of writing dog on one side and then your native word for dog on the other, put a picture of a dog on one side. When you see the picture, your brain immediately thinks dog in English, bypassing that translation step. This might seem like a small shift, but over time, it fundamentally rewires how your brain processes the language. You're building a direct mental link. This works for verbs too. If you're learning to run, don't just write the translation. Find a picture of someone running, or even better, imagine yourself running. For abstract concepts, you can think of situations or feelings. For happy, picture someone smiling, laughing, or remember a moment when you felt really joyful. The more vivid and personal the image, the stronger the connection will be. It's all about creating a rich sensory experience around the new vocabulary. When you encounter a new word, ask yourself, what does this word look like? What does it feel like? Can I draw a quick sketch of it? Even a silly doodle can help cement that connection. This technique helps you build a vocabulary that you can access much faster and more naturally because you're not constantly going through an extra translation step in your mind. It makes English feel more immediate and intuitive. Tip 4. Think in English, even for small things. All right, let's move on to tip number 4, which builds really nicely on the idea of making English a constant part of your day. Think in English, even for small everyday things. This is less about speaking out loud and more about what's going on inside your head. We're trying to train your brain to naturally process information in English without that extra step of translating from your native language. So, how do you do this? When you're performing simple, routine tasks throughout your day, try to mentally describe what you're doing or what you're seeing in English. For example, if you're making coffee in the morning, instead of just doing it, think to yourself, I am pouring the water. Now I will add the coffee grounds. The coffee is brewing. If you're driving or walking, describe the environment. That's a red car. The traffic is heavy. I need to turn left at the next light. This technique is incredibly powerful because it turns mundane moments into active learning opportunities. You're not just passively consuming English, you're actively producing it, even if it's just in your own mind. It forces you to recall vocabulary and sentence structures in real time, just like you would in a conversation. It doesn't have to be perfect. You might stumble on a word or not know how to phrase something. That's totally fine. The goal is to identify those gaps. If you think, oh, I don't know the word for that thing that holds the water, you can make a mental note to look it up later. Then, the next time you're thinking about your morning routine, you'll have that word ready. This practice helps to create a direct pathway between your thoughts and English expression. It reduces that lag time that often happens when you're trying to speak, where your brain is doing a quick translation. The more you practice thinking in English during these low-pressure, everyday moments, the more automatic and fluid your English will become, both in your thoughts and eventually in your speech. Now for tip number 5, and this one is all about leveraging those peaceful, quiet times you have throughout your day. I call it practice thinking in English during quiet moments. We all have those times, whether it's waiting in line at the grocery store, sitting on public transport, or maybe just before you fall asleep at night. These are golden opportunities to reinforce your English skills without any distractions. During these quiet periods, Instead of letting your mind wander in your native language, actively try to switch it to English. You can review vocabulary words you learned that day, or mentally summarize something you read or watched. You could even just describe your immediate surroundings to yourself, like, "The person in front of me has a blue hat," or "I hear a bird singing outside the window." The beauty of this tip is that it associates English with a sense of calm and introspection. It's a low-pressure environment where you can freely experiment with language in your mind. There's no one to correct you, no one to judge, just you and your thoughts. This helps to build confidence and makes the process of thinking in English feel less like a chore and more like a natural part of your inner monologue. This practice also helps to solidify new vocabulary and grammar structures. When you review things in your mind, you're actively retrieving information, which strengthens those neural pathways. It's like a mental workout that you can do anywhere, anytime, without needing any books or apps. It's about making English a comfortable, silent companion in your head, always ready for use. The more you invite English into these quiet spaces, the more integrated it will become into your subconscious mind. Now, for tip number 6, this one's a bit of a challenge, but it's incredibly rewarding. Try to avoid using translation apps too much. I know. They're super convenient, and they can be a real lifeline when you're completely stuck. But here's the thing. Relying on them too heavily can actually prevent your brain from doing the hard work it needs to do to truly think in English. When you immediately jump to a translator for every unfamiliar word or phrase, you're essentially outsourcing your thinking. Your brain doesn't get the chance to struggle, to make connections, or to try and figure things out using the English you already know. That struggle is actually where a lot of the real learning happens. So, what should you do instead? When you encounter a word you don't know, first, try to guess its meaning from the context. Look at the words around it, the overall sentence, the topic of the conversation. Can you get a general idea? Even if it's not perfect, that act of trying is beneficial. If context doesn't help, try to describe the concept in English using words you do know. For example, if you don't know the word fridge, you could try to explain it as the cold box where you keep food. This forces your brain to be creative and resourceful within the English language, strengthening your ability to express yourself even with limited vocabulary. Another strategy is to use an English-only dictionary. This makes you understand the definition using English words, rather than immediately jumping back to your native language. It keeps your brain in English mode. It's about building resilience. The more you challenge yourself to find alternative ways to express your thoughts or understand new words without instant translation, the stronger your independent English thinking will become. It's tough at first, but resisting that quick translation click really pushes your brain to grow and adapt. Tip 7. Use context clues. Okay, let's talk about tip number 7, and it ties in perfectly with our last discussion about not relying too much on translation. This tip is, always try to use context clues. This is a superpower for English learners, especially when you're reading or listening. You're going to encounter new words, maybe even a lot of them, and it's impossible to know every single word in the English language. That's where context comes in. Context clues are simply the other words, sentences, or even the overall situation that surround an unfamiliar word. They give you hints about its meaning. Think of it like being a detective. You gather all the evidence around the mysterious word to figure out what it means. For example, if you read a sentence like, "The ancient tome lay on the dusty shelf, its pages brittle with age," even if you don't know tome, the words ancient, dusty shelf, and brittle with age strongly suggest it's an old, perhaps large book. You don't need a dictionary to get the general idea. This skill is crucial because it helps you keep moving forward without constantly stopping to look up every single word. Every time you successfully infer the meaning of a word from context, You're not just learning that one word. You're also strengthening your comprehension skills and your ability to think in English. You're teaching your brain to navigate the language by understanding relationships between words. It also helps you understand the nuance of words, which a direct translation might sometimes miss. When you look at how a word is used in different situations, you get a much richer understanding of its meaning and appropriate usage. So, the next time you hit an unfamiliar word, pause, look at its neighbors, read the sentence again, and try to be a word detective. You'll be amazed at how much you can figure out just by paying attention to the clues around it. All right, we're making great progress. For tip number 8, I highly recommend something that combines several aspects of language learning. Keep an English journal. This is one of my absolute favorite ways to practice because it's personal, it's flexible, and it provides a clear record of your progress. A journal is a judgment-free zone where you can write about anything and everything that comes to your mind, but in English. You don't need a fancy notebook. Even a simple spiral notebook or a digital document on your computer will do. The key is consistency, even if you only write a few sentences each day. What can you write about? Anything. You can write about your day. Today, I woke up early and had a delicious breakfast. You can write about your feelings. I felt happy because the sun was shining. You can write about your plans. Tomorrow, I want to visit the park. You can even write about what you learned that day, new words, interesting phrases, or even just jot down a grocery list in English. The power of journaling is that it forces you to organize your thoughts directly in English. When you speak, sometimes you might use simple structures because you're trying to keep up with a conversation. But when you write, you have time to pause, think about sentence structure, vocabulary, and grammar. It helps you solidify what you've learned and identify gaps in your knowledge. If you're struggling to express an idea, that's a perfect opportunity to look up how to say it and then incorporate it into your writing. Plus, it's incredibly motivating to look back at your old entries. You'll see how far you've come, how your vocabulary has grown, and how your sentences have become more complex and natural. It's a tangible way to see your progress, which is a huge confidence booster. So grab a notebook, a pen, and just start writing in English. Even if it's imperfect, every word counts. Tip 9. Engage in conversations with native English speakers. All right, we're almost at the end of our list, and tip number 9 is a big one, perhaps the most impactful for truly gaining fluency and confidence. Engage in conversations with native English speakers. I know, this can feel incredibly intimidating. It feels like jumping into the deep end of the pool, but it's where all the previous tips really come together and where your progress will truly accelerate. Speaking with native speakers forces you to think on your feet. There's no time to translate every single word in your head. You have to react in real time. This pressure, while a bit uncomfortable at first, is exactly what you need to start forming sentences more quickly and naturally. It helps you get over the fear of making mistakes, because trust me, everyone makes them, even native speakers. They're just part of the learning process. So, how can you do this? There are so many ways now. You can look for language exchange partners online through apps or websites designed for this exact purpose. Many people want to learn your language too, so it's a fantastic way to swap skills. Look for online communities or forums where English speakers discuss topics you're interested in. Even just participating in the comments section can be a gentle way to start interacting. If you have the opportunity to speak with native speakers in person, maybe at a local language meetup, a community event, or if you're traveling, absolutely go for it. Even a simple exchange, like ordering food or asking for directions, is a win. The key is to remember that the goal isn't perfection, but communication. Native speakers are generally very patient and happy to help. They appreciate your effort. Every conversation you have, no matter how short or simple, builds your confidence and helps you internalize the rhythms and flow of natural English. It's truly the bridge from understanding English to actually using it in the real world. Tip 10. Be patient and persistent. And finally, for our 10th and last tip, this one is perhaps the most important mindset to adopt throughout your entire English learning journey. Be patient and persistent. Learning a new language, especially one as widely spoken and nuanced as English, is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be days when you feel amazing, like you're making huge progress, and then there will be days when it feels incredibly challenging, like you're not learning anything at all. That's completely normal, and honestly, everyone goes through it. Don't get discouraged by setbacks or plateaus. Learning is not a linear path. It has ups and downs, twists and turns. The key is to keep showing up, even on those difficult days. Consistency, even in small doses, is far more effective than trying to cram everything in at once and then burning out. Just 10 or 15 minutes of English practice every day can make a massive difference over time. Celebrate your small victories. Did you understand a sentence in a song you couldn't before? Did you manage to have a short conversation without too much hesitation? Did you learn 5 new words? These are all huge accomplishments, and acknowledging them keeps your motivation high. Focus on how far you've come, not just how far you have left to go. Remember that fluency isn't about perfection. It's about effective communication. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow. Embrace them as part of the process. The most successful language learners are those who are resilient and committed to the long game. So, keep practicing, keep putting yourself out there, and trust in the process. Your hard work will absolutely pay off. And that brings us to the end of my top 10 English learning tips. I truly hope you found these insights helpful and feel a little more inspired on your language journey. Remember, consistency and patience are your best friends. Every small step forward is a victory, so celebrate your progress and keep going. If you enjoyed this video and want more practical tips to boost your English skills, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. We're always working on new content designed to help you succeed, so you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.